Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome to another episode of Haqiqatjou, where we discuss religion and politics, the two least controversial subjects. As always, I'm your host, Daniel Haqiqatjou. And today we are going to react to and review a debate, mini debate that took place between Benny Morris and Norman Finkelstein on the Piers Morgan show, where they discuss the current genocide, starvation campaign against the Palestinians and the final solution of Israel to the Palestine question. We are going to react to this discussion or debate on Piers Morgan. And I'm also going to share some thoughts about what we're seeing in Palestine, but also what it means for the rest of the world, the rest of the Muslim world, the rest of the world, even non-Muslims, how this impacts them. I have some thoughts to share with you on that as well in this show. As always, I'm going to be looking at the super chats and reading those. So feel free to put in those super chats at any time. And if you put it in at the beginning of the show, I'll go back and read it, inshallah. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and subscribe to our newsletter. Very important. You can find the link to the newsletter below in the description. Feel free to subscribe to that. And by the way, if you haven't seen the documentary on Wahhabism on our channel published last week, go ahead and watch that if you haven't already. I also released the transcript of the documentary with all of the citations and quotes in English and Arabic. So if you watch the documentary and there was a quote there that you wanted to look up, the Arabic is there in a PDF document we've published on that you can get if you sign up for our newsletter. Free ebook. It's about 75 pages. It's quite it's basically a book. You can download that for free if you just sign up for our newsletter. The link is in the documentary on YouTube, or you can go to my Telegram channel as well, and you can get access to that PDF if you're interested. Just want to let you all know about that. So let's talk about the fact that it's the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, the best days of the year, alhamdulillah. I mentioned this on my social media as well. It's important to take advantage of these first 10 days with worship, extra worship. So that can be the emphasized worship. If you're not actually on Hajj, you're not doing Hajj right now, is takbir, saying Allahu Akbar, this dhikr of Allah, this remembrance of Allah, Allahu Akbar, specifically after your 5 prayers, or even throughout the day. It doesn't have to be after prayers, even when you're walking, even if you're by yourself, you're in the car, saying Allahu Akbar. This is one of the good deeds that you can do in these first 10 days, in these blessed days. There is also sadaqah. Sadaqah, very important, very critical. These days are when the reward for giving charity is multiplied. And there's also fasting. So if you can fast the first 10 days, this is something that is recommended if you can do so. So that's one of the other recommended ibadah on the first 10 days. And if you can't fast the first 10 days, at least Yom Arafah, the 9th day, highly emphasized, and Allah will forgive your sins, as is mentioned in hadith, for the year prior and the year after. So this is an emphasized sunnah to fast on Yom Arafah. So today we're going to, as I mentioned, look at this debate. And you'll notice that Piers Morgan is finally expressing concern He's expressing concern about the genocide. Finally, it just took 20 months. It just took 20 months of nonstop brutality and nonstop murder, massacre every day at the hands of the IDF for Piers Morgan to finally say, enough is enough. You know, I can't abide by starving children. So what's really going on here? Has Piers Morgan developed a conscience just in the past week? Has he, or was he just not aware that these kinds of starvation tactics and carpet bombing of women and children, literally burning Palestinians alive in their tents, like this has been happening for 20 months. This has been happening since October 8th. Did he not realize that? And it's not just Piers Morgan. You see many of the liberal elites in the West who for 20 months have been cheerleading Israel and saying that Israel has a right to defend itself. Now they're changing their tune and they're saying that, okay, now you've gone too far. Now Israel is going too far and there are some questions that need to be answered and we cannot support this. And people have noticed that, well, it seems very convenient. It seems very convenient that as Israel is approaching a final solution to completely cleanse Gaza, and they're forcing the Palestinians into this corner of Gaza in basically a concentration camp, highly densely populated concentration camp in the south, driving them to the south, and then starving them, and then bombing them, and continuing the bombing raids at night. This is, we're getting close to the final end for Palestinians in Gaza, and the 1.8 Palestinians or 1.7 Palestinians that are there remaining, that have survived 20 months, they're going to be either killed or they're going to be expelled. Probably into Egypt, probably into the Sinai. So that is now you have the UK government, the French government, and other European governments. You have someone like Piers Morgan, media pundits, who are expressing, they're trying to jump off of this sinking boat. They're trying to jump off, and sinking in the sense of that it's just impossible to pretend like this is not an ethnic cleansing campaign. All of the excuses that, no, this was about Hamas and making Hamas, the terrorist organization, pay for its crimes on October 7th. That kind of facade is no longer defensible. It wasn't ever defensible, but now if you literally eliminate the population, the entire population, then how can you say that this was directed at that one political group or military group of Hamas? So there's no more plausible deniability that they can hide behind. So someone like Piers Morgan, these Zionists or Zionist enablers have to basically give an excuse and say, well, clearly Netanyahu is going too far. It's not Israel. It's not Jewish people in general, even though all the polling shows that everyone is on board in these demographics and supporting what Netanyahu is doing. It's not them. It's Netanyahu. It's that Netanyahu is corrupt. Netanyahu is just a bad apple. He's a bad apple, and that's why this genocide is taking place. So we're going to see what Piers Morgan has to say as he moderates between Benny Morse and Finkelstein. Another thing that I see a lot of people saying nowadays is a kind of optimism. And I don't know where this kind of optimism is coming from. It's optimism that, well, we are changing the narrative and now people know, like people are becoming aware and they're awake to the atrocities of Israel, and they're becoming aware of the fact that the US policy around the world and even domestically is being heavily controlled by or influenced by one particular group, one particular demographic, one particular ethnicity. And this is a problem the country has been occupied, the United States has been occupied. This awareness has gone mainstream. You have Kanye West making music about it, making music about this particular group, Jews basically in America and the world. So this is great news. Like, now people are aware of what's going on, and so things are going to change for the better. Things are going to improve now. Like, we finally broken through. We finally broken through the media blockade, the censorship blockade, and now, despite trying their best to censor us, now everyone knows the jig is up. This can no longer continue. And October 7th and the genocide within Palestine with Gaza, that's just woken up the world. Israel has irrevocably damaged its reputation. So this is all great news. This is wonderful. That means that things are going to end. The oppression is going to come to an end because you can no longer continue to deceive people. This is the kind of optimism that I'm talking about, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is very naive. This is very naive for the simple reason that when it's discovered that this is who's in power and who's in control, when the culprits, those who are responsible, have been identified, does that mean that oppression is reduced? Does that mean that things get better, or does that mean that things get worse? Does that mean that the people in power become more desperate to maintain their power? They become like cornered animals who will lash out in increasingly violent ways, in increasingly desperate ways to maintain their control. What do you think is more likely? Do you think that those people who are responsible for genociding or ethnically cleansing 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, they're just going to roll over like, oh, we've been found out. Well, I guess the jig is up. Let's give up our power. Everything that we've been doing for 75 years or more, I guess that's no longer going to work. So let's just move on. Let's relinquish all of our control, all of our power, all of our wealth. Game over. Do you think that that is the way that things work? If you look at historically the way things play out, no, the situation gets much more repressive. The situation gets, these power factions become more dug in. They become more dug in, and they resort to further genocidal actions. And this is something that we can see in the past 80 years of U.S. or world history. And that's the kind of thing that we have to be aware of. That's the kind of timeline that we're facing. And I want to point out to you a couple of historical events, specifically concerning Muslims. Are you aware of the Kazakh famine in Central Asia at the hands of the Bolsheviks, at the hands of the Soviets, 1930 to 1933? Estimated 1.5 million people died in what was a forced famine, man-made famine. 1.5 million is the low estimate. Other estimates are at 3 million were genocided in Central Asia, primarily Kazakhs. And how did they do this? How does this happen? Because people might presume that, forced starvation, that happens only in third world countries, or that happens in places of very little development. But in reality, the mechanisms of forced starvation can be implemented on any given population, no matter how industrialized they may be. If they can't fight back, if they don't have the weapons to fight back, it doesn't matter how industrialized you actually are. So you had the Kazakh famine, and it was mainly perpetrated by who? Philip Goloshyokhin. Philip Goloshyokhin, who is of Jewish background, Bolshevik, and he was the architect of this Central Asian famine. You also, after later on in 1932 to 1933, you had the Ukrainian famine. And estimated 5 to 7 million, or some estimates, were killed in that famine. Other estimates say upwards of 10 million were killed in that famine. And again, it's a man-made famine. Man-made at the hands, again, of the Bolsheviks, which, you know, as a matter of historical fact, they share the religion, culture, and ethnicity of the same people who are engaged in starving the Palestinians to death today. So the way that they manufacture a famine is by destroying the food sources, stealing the food sources, any kind of food that is grown within a territory, confiscating that, destroying that. That's the first step. And then isolating regions, isolating cities, isolating territories, cutting off all trade routes so that nothing can come in and no one and nothing can come out. And that is not that difficult to implement. That kind of plan is not that difficult to implement. They're able to do it pretty efficiently. About 80 years ago, 85, 90 years ago. Today, with modern technology, it's even easier. It's even easier to isolate people, and then it's just a waiting game. Then you just wait till they starve to death. And we can see that plan being implemented in Gaza with the blockade, but also you see the beginnings of that plan against Yemen. Obviously, Saudi undertook this kind of starvation campaign against Yemen over the past 8 years, over the past 8 to 5 years. And now, once again, with coordination with Saudi, Israel is trying to implement this. They're bombing the ports within Yemen so that the Yemenis cannot access any imports of food or aid or supplies from the sea. They've bombed the airport, so one of the main airports in the Houthi-controlled regions of Yemen, and there's land blockade as well. So land, sea, air, you blockade that. Militarily, what is going to happen if you wait long enough? It's forced starvation. So this weapon can be used against any particular Muslim country. Any particular Muslim country. And newsflash for those of us in the West, it can also be used in non-Muslim countries. It can be used in the United States. And this is something that has been gamed, what's the word? Like, it's actually been not staged, but it's something that the operations or logistics of it have been tried. There have been entire cities that have been locked down. There have been entire states that have been locked down, where the federal government, in coordination with local authorities, will block entrance into certain cities, into certain states by force. We have seen a man-made destruction of all kinds of food, goods. There was an egg shortage, a poultry shortage in the United States recently in the first half of 2025. This was a artificial scarcity of eggs because the FDA claimed, this three-letter federal agency in the U.S., that there's a rise in bird flu. So we have to cull the population of chickens, and tens of millions of chickens were killed on the basis of, oh, there's some kind of flu, therefore we have to eliminate all of these chickens. And is there anyone who can independently verify that that was the reason, or that this was a legitimate reason to destroy the chicken population and drive the price of eggs to $1 an egg, basically? Buy a dozen eggs for $10, $12. People can't afford it. Why can't that be done throughout the farming agricultural sector? Why can't it be used in a targeted way against certain populations, certain segments, or certain regions of the United States? And you might think that, oh, Daniel, this is just a conspiracy theory. They would never do anything like this. I'm just telling you that there are ways to control a population. There are ways to bring a population to its knees, and that they always have, the people in power always have a way to protect themselves. And they have no hesitation in resorting to the most brutal means in order to do this. And if you think that this is far-fetched, then I only ask you to look at the 20th century. I only ask you to look at how man-made starvation, man-made famine has been used as a weapon of war to cull, to destroy millions of lives, millions of people eliminated. There's no reason to think that what has happened in the past cannot once again be implemented in the future, especially when we see it happening in Gaza. We see exactly what is happening in Gaza, and all of the means of blockade that are being implemented against the Palestinians. It can be implemented against the Jordanians. It can be implemented against the Syrians. It can be implemented against the Lebanese. It can be implemented against the Egyptians very easily. It can be implemented against the Algerians, the Moroccans, the Libyans. No, Iraq, no country in the Middle East is safe from this kind of tactic, especially when you have so many of these governments who are collaborating with the Zionists. And that's all. Another aspect of the history that you might not realize is that, like the famine in Central Asia, by the USSR, in Ukraine, you had corrupt individuals from those regions coordinating with the Soviets, coordinating with the Bolsheviks, that allowed this operation to take place, this campaign over 2 or 3 years, causing the mass starvation, killing millions of people. That comes with that inside cooperation. And we know very well that many of these governments, will have no hesitation to throw their people under the bus, even if it means the death of millions. So it's good to just be aware. It's good to be woke at potentialities, possibilities. If history is any teacher, we can't be naive and think that once they have finished off Gaza, once they finished off Palestine in Gaza, and then in the West Bank, they've announced 20 new settlements in the West Bank, by the way, that then it's going to end. Like, okay, then now their reputation has been irrevocably damaged. So that means that now there's going to be so much pressure on Israel. No, they're only getting stronger. They've only gotten stronger. And a lot of these idiots who claim that, we want the end of this axis of resistance. We want, these Shia, these dirty Rawafid. I can't wait till they're destroyed. We have to celebrate, because this is just another example of the one Kafir group destroying another Kafir group. So we have to celebrate. Let's see how that works out. Let's see how that works out when Israel has no resistance, has no opposition in the region. That's the situation that we are arriving at. We're arriving at with Gaza being cleared out, with Lebanon and Hezbollah completely neutralized, Syria completely neutralized and on the brink of normalizing, the Gulf obviously being having normalized or functionally normalized with Israel, and Iran either making a deal with the US or more likely they're going to be attacked. And this is what Israel has recently revealed, that their plan all along has been to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. Israel wants to attack Iran's nuclear facilities not because Israel believes that it can eliminate Iran's nuclear capabilities. No, that's not Israel's plan. Israel's plan is to attack Iran, their nuclear facilities, kill maybe 100 Iranians, maybe 200, cause civilian deaths in order to force Iran to retaliate. And when Iran retaliates, then that will force the United States to get involved and to begin fighting this war against Iran in such a way that it'll escalate to a regional war. And then the United States will have to decapitate the Iranian regime and effectuate regime change in Iran. That's what Israel wants. And they have stated this. It's actually on the mainstream news. It was reported in the New York Times that Israel's entire plan is to trigger a retaliation from Iran that will draw the United States into a massive regional war, and that Israel itself won't have to fight. Israel doesn't want to fight Iran. Israel wants the United States to fight on its behalf to eliminate Iran, to eliminate their nuclear program, to eliminate their ballistic missile program, and ultimately to effectuate regime change in Iran, a new government that's going to be normalized with the Zionists. And at that point, then you have complete control of the Middle East. Israel is the unchallenged hegemon of the Middle East with security, stability, no more worrying about these hostile Arab neighbors. All of the hostile neighbors have been either neutralized or eliminated. Going back to, how far back do you want to go? How many? We had that video on our channel about all of any kind of leader that the Muslims have that have opposed Israel mysteriously have been assassinated or there's been regime change. So going back to King Faisal, for example, and others. So this is what we have to look forward to be honest. And this is what I've been saying for 20 months. This is what I have been talking about. This eventuality, this situation is what I've been talking about for 20 months. And still we have these morons, these Arab nationalists, or these Muslim conservatives who have said, no, we want Iran eliminated. Okay, you want Iran eliminated. What do you think that is going to result in? That's going to be a good situation for Muslims? That's going to be, even if you do want to takfir the Shia, mass takfir the Shia, and say that every Shia in Iran, you have 90 million Shia, they're all kafir, the most evil Shiateen, we want them all wiped out. If this is your perspective, which is not an exaggeration, this is what some of these people actually believe, they actually want, then what is that going to mean for the Muslims that you do care about? The Muslims that are living throughout the Middle East and the world as a whole. Have you thought this through? Do you understand the principle of cause and effect? What is the effect that's going to come by eliminating the main counterweight geopolitically to Israel? And I'm the only one, literally. I'm literally the only one that's coming from a Sunni background, Sunni religious background, who is asking this question. Isn't that shocking? Why won't other people raise this question? Like, why won't the other speakers and du'at raise this question? Oh, because that means you love the Shia. That means you love the Shia and you think that the Shia are innocent angels and the Syrians haven't suffered at the hands of the Iranian government, and the Iranian government hasn't committed crimes and hasn't killed hundreds of thousands of Sunni Syrians, so that you're an Assadist. Because of that kind of smear campaign, which is connected to Unit 8200, Mossad, etc., because you're scared of those kinds of smears and that kind of backlash, you keep silent and you won't say the obvious. You won't make the obvious point. So this is shameful. This is shameful. I've gotten nonstop backlash from, and a lot of them were people who should be smarter and people who were supporting MuslimSkeptic for years. And then, if Daniel says that actually it's a good thing that Iran is countering Israel. It's a good thing because the future of the Ummah and the future of the Middle East hangs in the balance because of these geopolitical forces. And this is not something that is speculative. We can do 1 + 1 = 2. And I am very clear that I oppose Assad. I oppose the crimes of the Iranian government and Hezbollah against Sunnis. I believe that Shiism is deviant. The concept of Wilayat al-Faqih that the Iranian government is based off of, this is not Islamic. But still, I'm a secret Shi'i and I'm an Assadist and I'm a Khomeini Madkhali, because I just raise a very basic, obvious point that everyone should be saying. Every Muslim should be saying this. Every Muslim should understand this. And the fact that they don't proves that they're either cowards, they're absolute cowards, or they're just too stupid to function. They are too low IQ to function. So how are they leaders of the community and speakers and sheikhs and imams? Like, this is a huge disaster. This is a massive disaster that's going to have consequences, not only for us, not only for our children, but our grandchildren and beyond. Do you have any kind of optimism about what is happening right now in Gaza and what is going to result from Israel being successful in its plan? Do you have any optimism? Then, if you don't have any optimism, then what do you expect to happen? That's what I don't understand. What do you expect to happen? And this is just a empty victory. Like, people are aware. People are aware now that Israel is bad. Israel, their reputation is in the trash. Oh, wow. That's great. That's wonderful. Oh, great victory. Great victory. I'm sure that's going to really matter. I'm sure that's really going to have any kind of deterrent effect on the plans that these people have for the rest of the Middle East and the entire world. I'm sure that they're really going to, you're going to shame them in not enacting the same kind of thing that they did to the Palestinians unopposed, from enacting that on the rest of the Middle East. I'm sure you're going to shame them. I'm sure that now they're going to be too embarrassed to do exactly what they've done for the past 20 months, continuing that in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Syria, eventually in Jordan, in the Sinai, in Egypt, and beyond. I'm sure that that's the case. In Iran, in Iraq, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of these people, and it's just so frustrating. It's so. It's like no logic no basic reasoning. Like, you're so driven by emotion, you're so driven by that you can't see the reality facing you right in front of you. You're not able to comprehend it or to do basic cause and effect. Like, what is, like, isn't that something that any adult who is not mentally handicapped can do? Like, if I drop this pencil, it's gonna fall, and if it falls, it's gonna make a sound, and if it hits the table, it's gonna roll off. And cause and effect, like a causal chain. Can you do that with anything bigger than a pencil falling or bigger than everyday household objects? Like, don't you see what's going to happen? Anyway, can just rant on and on about this, but I told you so. That's ultimately the message. I told you so, and I got so much heat and so much hate for that by supposedly religious Muslims, religious Sunni Muslims. And this is not the first time I told you so. This is not the first issue I told you so and was completely vindicated. And I hate to be right in this way. I hate to be right. Okay, let's look at this discussion with Piers Morgan and Finkelstein.
Well, I'm going to be joined now by two people with very different views about the war, Professor Norman Finkelstein and Benny Morris, Israeli historian. Well, welcome to both of you. Benny Morris, my main question right now for Benjamin Netanyahu, I put it to him on X directly. And I said, if you're doing everything by the book and everything is justified and everything is legal and you're not committing any war crimes or any of these things, I simply asked him one simple question. If you're doing nothing wrong, let international journalists go in and see for themselves. And I think it is completely shameful that the Israeli government continues to stop international journalists from doing their job. And it's down to the individual risk assessment will be by the journalists and their companies. It was put to me on 2-3 days ago by an IDF member that somehow this has been done for the safety of the journalists. It's not. It's complete nonsense. And that's not down to the Israeli government anyway to make that call. I mean, do you at least accept that it is wrong that journalists are not allowed in there?
I completely agree with you, Piers. The government has made a terrible mistake in not allowing journalists in, and whoever dies there dies, but they should have allowed them in. But I would like to comment some...
Whoever dies there, dies there. Yeah, because Israel is mass killing journalists. Any journalist who tries to go, imagine, they allow journalists to go in, you're going to be targeted by the IDF. And this has been proven over and over again. Israel has killed more journalists in the past 20 months than all previous conflicts over the past 50 years or more. So it's, yeah, if they die, they die. That's all that Benny Morris can say. So he's willing to concede that, okay, yeah, maybe they should let journalists in, and then, leave the rest to God. Leave the rest to God. If they die, that's, the risk that they took.
Make a comment about what your previous guest was saying. He said he spoke about objectivity or something. The man is a total Hamas propagandist. Half the things he said were outright lies. Lots of doctors have been abducted and have disappeared is total nonsense. I know of 1 or 2 cases of doctors who were taken to an Israeli detention center. What happened to them afterwards, I don't know. I don't think they've been killed. I think they are under arrest for whatever reason. But
so they could have been abducted.
Many doctors have been... You're
basically agreeing with him, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that he...
So the previous segment, which I didn't play, a Palestinian doctor is talking about how within Gaza, so many of the Palestinian doctors have been kidnapped by the IDF and killed by the IDF. And then Benny Morris is saying, oh, this guy is a liar. This guy is a liar. They've been abducted. There have been There's 1 or 2 cases that I know of where doctors have been abducted, but there's no evidence that they've been killed. So Piers Morgan is saying, well, it sounds like you're agreeing with him. It sounds like you're agreeing. Where's the lie? I missed the part where he lied about anything.
Talked about
you just said you know of some doctors who were detained. You have no idea what happened to them.
I know of one or two doctors.
You're confirming his story.
No, I'm not. I'm confirming a small part of what is true. The rest is a lie, as is a large part of what he's saying.
The part that that you're confirming is true is horrifying. Just if the part that you're confirming as true, that is sufficient to be completely unacceptable and completely damning of Israel and the government and the IDF. But this is the way that they play games. No, but focus on the lies. He's lying. Okay, are we going to trust him or you? You, that you're acknowledging the horrifying part and saying that, oh, well, this segment is true, but you refuse to condemn it, or you refuse to express the same kind of moral outrage. So why should we trust you, Benny Morris?
Israel wanted to kill all the Palestinians. That's what genocide actually means. There would have been many, many, many more deaths in Gaza. Each time Israel launches an air raid, we hear of the Palestinians saying 24 people have died, 30 people have died, and I'm sure many of them are civilians, but I'm also sure that the Air Force going in against these targets is attacking Hamasniks. We never hear from the Hamas how many of their people are being killed in these strikes. All we hear about and all we see on television is dead babies and dead women. They never show grown male, army-aged males being taken out of these ruins. And the Hamas...
So if they showed army-age Palestinian men amongst the dead, then it would justify murdering these women and children? That would provide justification? Like this... So he's not denying that there's plenty of women and children getting blown up. His only objection is that, well, they're not showing the men that have also been killed by these blasts, by this carpet bombing. They're not showing the men as well. Therefore, it's Hamas and the Palestinians who are lying. How would it be more justifiable if they did show Palestinian men? By the way, I'm pretty sure that in all the footage there are plenty of men being shown also among the dead bodies, also being charred and burnt to a crisp by the firebombing of their tents. By their tents in these refugee camps, in these tent encampments. Men are also being burned alive. So what is he even talking about? This is just arguing for the sake of arguing as if you have any kind of moral case. And this is the term chutzpah. This is chutzpah. This is the tactic of a certain ethnic group that we're seeing in full display here.
Hamas uses these things systematically. The schools, the hospitals, various so-called safe compounds to hide in.
But out of interest. All right, but Benny Morris, when you hear someone like Smotrich last week talking about the campaign to just clear everybody out.
He's disgusting. You don't have to convince me. He's disgusting.
Right, but so my question for you, but my question for you though is this.
Now, Smotrich, the finance minister, he's disgusting. He's talking about like clearing all of Gaza, clearing not only Gaza, by the way, he wants greater Israel. He wants all of greater Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates to be cleared completely of non-Jews. That's their finance minister. Oh, he's disgusting. Well, Benny Morris, he's extremely popular in Israel. He's extremely popular. That's why he has the position that he does. So, again, the attempt to portray these heads of the Israeli government as being like isolated voices. They're the heads of the government there because of how popular they are. And they use the same argument, by the way, to justify the genocide of Palestinians or the mass slaughter of Palestinians. They say, well, they voted for Hamas. They voted for Hamas in those elections in 2006. So all of the Palestinians are complicit in anything that Hamas does, and that's what justifies the IDF carpet bombing and slaughtering all of these Palestinians in the tens of thousands, in the hundreds of thousands.
All right, he's disgusting. What he said was disgusting.
Yes.
But what he said was also genocidal. Whereas you do not believe it's genocide that's going on, he clearly is talking in a way which made me believe that actually maybe the intention is genocide. It may not be the death of absolutely everybody, but it means killing a lot of Palestinians and kicking the rest out of the area. And that is a genocide.
No. A genocide is something which is top-down government policy and carried out systematically. That's not what is happening.
He's the finance minister. He's at the very top of the government. Smotrich is at the top of the government. So when he makes a statement, a genocidal statement, how is that not top down? He isn't at the top of the government. He controls all of these arms of the government. He's representing Netanyahu. He's in a coalition government with Netanyahu.
He is definitely, some of his speeches are genocidal. I don't know what he means exactly. And there are other ministers who speak like him, and they shouldn't be doing that. And they may even have a genocidal mentality, but they do not control government policy, and they do not control what the army is doing. That's done.
The finance minister, all of these other ministers making genocidal statements. They're not in control of the government policy. So this is like the best hasbara that you could generate. Like, this is the best kind of propaganda that is coming out of Israel now.
Done by the generals, and unfortunately, in my mind, by a man called Netanyahu, who's totally corrupt and incompetent.
Yeah, okay.
He's corrupt and incompetent, but our critique is he's genocidal. He is genocidal. He's not only making genocidal statements, he's also carrying out a genocide. So being corrupt is kind of lower on the list of bad things. Being corrupt and incompetent, like that's pretty low on the list. I think making genocidal statements and implementing a forced starvation campaign and a forced migration of Palestinians, I think that's much higher on the list, don't you think?
Maybe bring in Norman Finkelstein.
It's got nothing to do with, but it's got nothing to do with genocide.
Well, I think you're getting perilously close to agreeing with me. Norman Finkelstein, I mean, the bottom line is, if it sounds from the rhetoric like a genocide, if the actions on the ground are becoming increasingly genocidal, if there's no other plan being put out there for what happens to Palestinian people other than many more will die and the rest will be thrown out of Gaza, I don't know what else you end up calling this. And, you know, I listened to that doctor. I didn't hear somebody that I felt was a Hamas sympathizer or propagandist. He went out of his way to say he wasn't.
He's just a liar. He's a liar.
Well, he's a liar who's lost 78 members of his family. So, I mean, Norman Finkelstein.
Maybe it's true, and I agree, and I feel sorry for him, but they're caught up in the bad situation where Hamas controls the population and is willing to sacrifice as many civilians as they can to win world support.
Well, which is
they Palestinians are so evil that they're willing to sacrifice tens of thousands of women and children just so that they can win world support. Like, that's how evil the Palestinians are, and inhuman, according to Benny Morris. I mean, this kind of propaganda, no one believes it anymore, like the whole human shields excuse. And even comedians are making jokes about this. Like, even mainstream American comedians, like very popular, like there's one comedian named Bill Burr. Even Bill Burr is making jokes about this excuse from Israel about, oh, well, the Hamas is using human shields. And what Bill Burr says is that, oh, okay, well, if someone is hiding behind a baby, and someone punches me, and I go to retaliate, and he picks up a baby as a human shield, I'm not going to punch through the baby. I'm not going to punch through the baby to get at you. I'll try to find a way to get at you without harming the baby. So the human shield, the fact that Israel is going to slaughter countless women and children just to supposedly get at Hamas, like, this is not a morally sound argument. It's quite ridiculous. It's horrifying. It's a horrifying logic. And it's not justifiable at all. So they're still repeating the human shields line, despite the fact that we're seeing the clear footage of Gaza being reduced to complete rubble. Chutzpah.
Is exactly what Israel's also seems like they're prepared to sacrifice. Norman Finkelstein.
Well, thank you for having me on the program, and I hope that you'll hear me out. Is it a genocide? Well, as you know, Piers, from the first time I appeared on your program many months ago, I said it was a genocide. I said it was perfectly obvious when October 9th...
Like, look at this guy grinning and smiling and laughing as Finkelstein is talking about genocide. Look at him. Look at that smug grin that he has. He just loves it. He loves the thought of Palestinian babies being bombed to death.
9th, the then Defense Minister Gallant said, we're not going to allow in any food, fuel, water, or electricity. Well, for a hermetically sealed population, that's a genocide. When the head of state, Mr. Netanyahu, compared the current situation with Amalek and invoked the biblical reference, it was clear, as the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem put it, that he was talking about genocide. Now, in the 19 months that have elapsed, there have been adjustments in Israeli policy due to external pressure. That's called politics. So when the external pressures escalated, they had to diminish the genocide. And then beginning roughly when Kamala Harris was nominated for president in the United States, and all the cameras switched to the American election, Mr. Netanyahu, who's very sensitive to and knowledgeable of the American media, he then escalated the genocidal assault on Gaza again. And then, as you remember, because I did several programs with you at that time, as you'll remember, every day there was another massacre. There were so many massacres, it was impossible to keep count, and it was impossible to remember. Now, again, there was some lessening.
The first massacre,
okay,
which was launched by Hamas.
Okay, I've not forgotten it, Benny. But you have to remember manners. I'll remember the massacres, and you remember manners. I'm speaking now. So,
what is that picture behind him? Labib is saying this in the chat. Look at this picture behind. Is that a picture of himself? Like, who has a portrait of himself hanging up? And it's like right behind him for this. Like, these people are psychotic.
There were times when Israel, as I said, escalated the genocide and then diminished the genocide. Now, let's talk about the responsibility and the mindset. You've mentioned Mr. Smotrich. I mentioned Mr. Netanyahu. There was also several others whose names have constantly come up. Obviously, Defense Minister Gallant, who was indicted along with Prime Minister Netanyahu by the International Criminal Court. But it's not just the leadership. It's not just the leadership. The most recent poll showed that fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews, we're talking now about the population, fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews believe that Israel should conduct a genocide in Gaza. That's what the poll result showed. 82%.
That's a lie. That is a lie.
I know, Benny, everybody's lying.
There's
but
never been a poll about supporting genocide.
This
is nonsense. You're purveying lies.
Okay. Okay, Benny.
Wait, look at that smile. Look at that smug grin. It's like smiling because he knows he's lying. Yeah, of course, no poll is going to say, do you support a genocide? That's not what the polls say. The polls say, do you support the current actions of the IDF? Do you support forcibly removing all of the Palestinians? Do you support killing the Palestinians? That's what the poll says. But this guy knows it. Benny Morris knows that, but he comes up with a technicality. There's no poll about genocide. You're lying. And look at him grinning and smiling about it. So let's look at these polls. This is, is this from some kind of pro-Palestinian Hamas source? Oh no, actually it's from Haaretz. It's actually Haaretz. Yes to transfer. 82% of Jewish Israelis back expelling Gazans. And this is from last week. 20 years ago, Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg, the spiritual father of the Hilltop Youth, sketched out his vision for destroying Israel's democratic institutions and establishing Jewish supremacy. After October 7th, it seems that his vision is coming to fruition. So this, a recent survey of Israeli Jews reveals a growing comfort with the idea of forcibly expelling Palestinians both from Gaza and from within Israel's borders. So not just Gaza. This is all of Israel's borders. And we know that Israel's borders are not defined by Israel itself because they actually define their borders biblically. Greater Israel, that's what Israel means. That's what the religious within Israel society actually believes Israel is, not according to some international border that has been drawn up by the UN. Israel itself does not define its own borders for a very specific reason, because they're constantly expanding those borders. They're constantly annexing more and more land. Now, when you look at these polls, let me... more details on these polls. You can find this. Actually, I don't want to. Let me just do this. First poll of Jewish Americans since the temporary ceasefire finds 81% of Jewish Americans back Israel's war against Hamas. Only 12% prefer a ceasefire. So that's in America. Then you see this. Israeli society is totally fascist and genocidal. A poll by Israeli newspaper Haaretz found the majority of Israelis want to ethnically cleanse Gaza and expel Palestinians from Israel. Half of Israelis want to kill everyone in Gaza. So this is Haaretz, Israeli source. Let me try to find a way so you can see these charts. Percentage of Jews in Israel who support the forced expulsion of Gaza's residents. The red is ultra-Orthodox. So 97% of the ultra-Orthodox within Israel. That's a huge portion of the Israeli population. They support 97% want complete ethnic cleansing. Just expel the Palestinians out of Gaza. They're religious. So the people who are just religious, they're not Orthodox, they're just religious. 90% want forced expulsion. The traditionalists, 91% want forced expulsion. And even the secularists, even the people who are not religious at all, secular Jews, 70% want forced expulsion of all the Palestinians. Wait, I thought this was a war against Hamas. I thought this was a war against the Hamas terrorists. We just want to get rid of the terrorists, the Hamas terrorists, and then we don't have a problem with the Palestinians themselves. That's the lie that we've been constantly told by these propagandists who are speaking to a American audience. But polling Israeli society shows that no, they want to cleanse Gaza. Percentage of Jews who believe that all residents of a captured enemy city should be killed. %63% of the ultra-Orthodox believe that when the IDF captures a city, all residents should be killed. 63%. 59% of the religious, 60% of the traditionalists, and 31% of the secularists. So even 1/3 of the secularists believe in massacring, wiping out, killing all the residents of a place that the IDF conquers, a city. So Gaza. Percentage of Jews in Israel who support the forced expulsion of Israeli Arabs. So even before October 7th, the percentage was like 80% or more of not just Arabs who are citizens in Israel, but just Arabs in general. Some 80% are in favor of forced expulsion from all of Israel's territory. Now, from this poll from just last week, 91% want to expel the Israeli Arabs. So these are Arabs who are in Tel Aviv, who are in the Israeli cities. They're Israeli citizens, but they're Arab ethnically. 91% of the Jewish Israelis want to expel these Arabs. 68% of the religious, 65% of the traditionalists, and even 38%, more than a third of the secular also, are in favor of a race-based expulsion. So all of the people who claim, all of the Zionist Hasbara claimants that say that, oh, Israel is not an apartheid state, Israel doesn't support apartheid, Israel is a democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East. Yeah, a democracy where over 1/3 of the secular population, not to mention the religious, want to expel a different ethnicity, a different race. Yeah, that's the only democracy in the Middle East. Okay, so this is from Haaretz. This has been translated from the original Hebrew. They don't publish these kinds of polls in their English language. It's saved for the Hebrew, but those are the results from an Israeli source. And then we can play this, which is equally shocking. Listen to this. This is a former member of the Knesset, which is Israel's parliament. Look at what this guy says. He went viral for saying that the IDF needs to kill the Palestinian babies. The Palestinian babies need to be eliminated.
רוצים לדבר איתך על מה שאמרת הבוקר בראיון לערוץ 14, כל תינוק בעזה הוא אויב. אתה באמת מאמין בזה?
You believe every baby in Gaza is an enemy? This is what the reporter is asking.
בוודאי, בוודאי. הגדרת האויב כחמאס ואחר כך רק כזרוע צבאית של החמאס היא הסיבה לכך ש20 חודשים חלפו מאז אותו יום מר ונמהר ב7 באוקטובר ואין ניצחון באופק. אתה לא יכול לנצח כשאתה לא מבין מי האויב. האויב הוא לא החמאס. האויב...
Saying that, you know, the reason that we're having this war for 20 months is that we haven't recognized who the true enemy is. The true enemy is not Hamas. The true enemy is the Palestinian people, including the babies. That's why we haven't. So according to this former member of the Israeli government, the IDF hasn't been brutal enough. Like the IDF has been too gentle and kind to the people of Gaza. They should have finished the job a long time ago, but it's because of they're too humanitarian, and they don't understand that it's not just Hamas who's the enemy; it's the Palestinian babies as well.
היא ישות הטרור שיצרנו במו ידינו באוסלו ובהתנתקות. בעזה.
בסופו של דבר הם אלו שמבצעים את מעשי הרצח, האונס והדברים הנתעבים שהם ממשיכים לעשות.
חבל שאנחנו, וכשאני אומר אנחנו, אני גם מתכוון לצערי הרב למה שאמרת כרגע, מהדהדים את השקר הזה. ב7 באוקטובר גם ילדים בני 6 ובני 9 חצו את הגדר ושרפו ורדפו עם סכינים אחרי ילדים ונשים והציתו.
So he's saying that in October 7th, there were 6-year-olds who were crossing the border wall with knives and attacking those poor, innocent Israeli settlers and IDF soldiers. 6-year-olds. The 6-year-olds are complicit. The 6-year-olds, they were setting fires.
והיו חלק מכל הסיפור. מדובר בחברה שלמה שקידשה את המוות של כל יהודי, והם יונקים את המוות של כל יהודי עם חלב אימם.
כן, אתה אמרת את זה, נאמר בתגובה לדברים של יאיר גולן, אבל בשני המקרים צריך לומר, מדובר באמירות קיצוניות. צה"ל לא הורג ילדים כתחביב, אבל גם לא כל תינוק בעזה הוא אויב.
סליחה, לא מדובר בשום אמירה קיצונית, מדובר בתיאור של המציאות. ואני מניח שגם את מבינה שאותו תינוק בעזה, כשהוא יגדל, והוא יגדל תחת אותו חינוך, אין להם חינוך אחרת, זאת דת.
So the baby that's suckling its mother's milk, when that baby grows up, he's going to be educated by Muslims. And when he's educated by Muslims, that's how he becomes a terrorist. This is what he's saying. It's their religion. It's Islamo-Nazism, which they suck up when they are suckling at the mother's milk. They're suckling Islamo-Nazism.
אבל אתה מבין שזה לא דיכוטומי. לא כל תינוק בעזה, כפי שאתה אומר, יעשה את מה שאתה אומר. כלומר, יש גם בלתי מעורבים.
לא, אני לא מבין את זה.
שהם אנשים כמוני כמוך, שפשוט רוצים לחיות.
את מתעקשת לתת לילד הזה לגדול, ובעוד 14-15 שנה, לשרוף ולרצוח ולאנוס.
So he's saying that you allow these Palestinian babies to grow up, then in 14 and 15 years, they're going to burn you, they're going to murder you, they're going to rape your children. That's what you're doing right now. That's what you're allowing if you allow the Palestinian babies to grow up.
זה מה שאת עושה כרגע. כן, זה לא דיכוטומי, זאת המציאות. זאת תרבות שלמה שכל מהותה הוא הרצח שלך ושל ילדייך. אם אחרי השביעי באוקטובר לא הבנו את זה, אנחנו נקבל את השביעי באוקטובר הבא.
אני אומרת, אבל הצו המוסרי שלנו כיהודים שהיו...
The whole culture, the whole Palestinian culture is about murder and killing and raping. This is what he's accusing the Palestinians of. the gall of this guy.
בגולה, עברו שואה. הוא לא להרוג חפים מפשע כמי שהרגו אותנו.
הצו המוסרי שלנו הוא קודם כל כלפי הילדים שלנו. הוא קודם כל כלפי החיילים שלנו. הצו המוסרי שלנו הוא לזרוק את אוסלו אל פח האשפה של ההיסטוריה, לשוב אל החוף המערבי של הנגב, שהוא חלק מארץ ישראל, לכבוש אותו, לגרש משם את כל אוכלוסיית האויב שבחרה בחמאס, אבל היא כל כולה חלק מהרצח המתועב הזה. זקנים, טף, נשים ומבוגרים, כולם חצו, גם את.
Elderly women and children, they all, 6-year-olds, were all involved in October 7th. They all deserve to die. Our goal, our moral imperative, is to expel all of these people, kill and expel, and take back this coastal area for Israel. That is our rightful land. So we've inherited it from God, and we have to eliminate the people who are there.
אני בטוח ראית את התמונה של הזקן עם המקל שחוצה את הגדר. והטבח שהם עשו כשהם חצו לא היה שונה מהמחבלים שחצו בגל הראשון. כן. ובואו נפסיק לספר לעצמנו סיפורים. רק רגע, ואחרי שנכבוש ונגרש, נבנה מחדש את גוש קטיף, עזה תהיה עיר עברית בדיוק כפי שאשקלון ואשדוד הפכו להיות ערים ערביות, כן, אחרי שגירשנו את הכפרים הערביים שהיו שם ב-48, אין פתרון.
Saying like, we're going to do the same thing that we did in 1948. We are going to expel all the Palestinians from Gaza, and we're going to make it into another Israeli city, just like Ashkelon and Ashdod and Tel Aviv. We're going to do the same thing that we did in 1948. So it's so interesting. Someone like Benny Morris will argue that, oh, no, there was no forced expulsion. There was no, this was just a defense. Israelis were just defending themselves against the aggressive Arabs. But you have, like, amongst themselves on their own news programs, they admit it, that we're going to do the same thing to Gaza that we did to all of the land that we've taken. We're going to kill them and kick them out and take what is rightfully ours. So they're very clear on this. There's no sugarcoating it. And this is our moral imperative. This is our right. This is our right. And that if that includes killing the babies, That's a price that we're willing to pay. In fact, we must kill the babies, because if we don't, and we just expel them without killing them, they're going to grow up to hate us, and then they're going to fight us. And that might harm, even if it harms a soldier, a Jewish soldier, even the tip of his fingernail is broken because of a Palestinian, that justifies killing the Palestinian baby before he can grow up to fight back. This is the logic. There's no other solution. This is the only solution. This is the final solution. So again, like when you see these kinds of numbers supporting the killing of every resident, supporting mass expulsion, where does this come from? The supporting of killing babies, where does this come from? By the way, this particular former member of the Israeli government, he's very popular. He's like shot up in popularity. He's like a hero. He's being celebrated by the Israelis. Don't let the news reporter fool you. The news reporter who is very gently pushing back, like, no, there has to be another way. Surely you can't think that a baby is involved. You know, this is just for plausible deniability purposes. And the entire news program is set up to, they showed like this picture of clearly a grown man, but there's something dangling from his hand. So they say, oh, this is a cane. This is an old woman with a cane. Even the elderly women in Gaza crossed the border wall and were involved in massacring us. So the news program is designed to back up what this genocidal extremist is saying, because it's all of their society. And the projection that, oh, the Palestinians are the ones that have this kind of genocidal rage against us, and even their people are not involved, like everyone is involved in this. That's just a pure projection from them. In reality, they're the ones who want to genocide all the Palestinians. They want to kill even their babies. That's them. Palestinians don't want that. Palestinians are being starved to death and they're being genocided, and they want to be free from that. That's all the Palestinians want. So how do they get this kind of attitude? Where do they get this from? They get it from their Bible. They get it from the Hebrew Bible, and we've discussed this in debates, as well as other live streams. 1 Samuel 15, chapter 15, verse 3. Now go attack the Amalek and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men, women, and children, and infants, cattle, sheep, camels, and donkeys. So just lay complete waste. Totally destroy them. That's where they're getting this from. Deuteronomy 25:19 also says, when the Lord your God gives you rest from all the enemies around you in the land he is giving you to possess as an inheritance, you shall blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. And this is exactly the verse that Netanyahu was citing in October 2023 when this whole campaign started. This is the source of their culture, their values, their beliefs. And even the secular people, they share the same culture, they share the same values. Ultimately, it's coming from the Bible. So let me bring up the rest of the discussion. We're almost getting through it.
Norman, what is that poll? What is that poll, Norman? It seems a very important poll. What is that poll you're referring to?
It was a university, if my memory is correct, it was a University of Pennsylvania poll. It was reported everywhere. Benny Morris knows about the poll. He's fully informed of the poll, but he's doing his job as an official Israeli propagandist.
I have no job. I don't like this government. I'm not their spokesman.
You've reduced yourself. You've reduced Mr. Benny, you've reduced yourself to the level of a Holocaust denier. It's a real shame that you have sunk so low, but allow me to continue. The polls show that 82% of Israeli Jews, 82% support a forced expulsion from Gaza.
That's not
of
the same as genocide.
Population.
That may be true. That may be true, but that's not genocide.
See, he knows that he knows about the poll, but he's just disingenuously quibbling about the wording. So the poll was reported by Haaretz, but the original poll was conducted by Pennsylvania State University.
Yeah,
and it was conducted in March.
It's not genocide. What you said before about genocide is total nonsense. Total nonsense.
Piers, you're going to have to ask Benny Morris to please allow me to speak.
Well, Benny, I will let you respond to this.
You're taking up all the time, though.
Yeah, Norman, you must give him a chance to respond.
Okay, I will finish. I will finish. Then one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel described Israeli soldiers as killing children as a hobby in Gaza. Now, yes, he took it back. He took it back after he came under ferocious attack. But he himself acknowledged, when I debated Mr. Morris about a year ago, and I said that Israel targets children, he laughed. He thought it was such a funny remark by me.
It's absolute
I'm wondering, after the foreign doctors in Gaza, after the foreign doctors in Gaza attested that the children were being shot in the head and the chest, and when one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel said that the Israeli soldiers killed children as a hobby.
I must let Benny respond, Norman. I must let Benny respond. Benny.
There has never been a poll asking Israelis whether they support genocide. This is a total lie, and the 50%...
Yeah, they don't not supporting genocide, supporting killing all the residents. Killing all the residents, that's not genocide. It's only genocide if you intend to wipe out a race. And they didn't specifically ask about that. They just asked about killing all the residents of a city that the military takes. Look at the games.
Figure is also something completely out of Norman Finkelstein's imagination, his twisted mind, actually. There is no targeting of children deliberately, and what this politician said, and he's actually a very clever politician and usually tells things straight and the truth, was a slip of the tongue, and he said, I made a mistake. I said the wrong thing, and I shouldn't have used that phrase.
Oh, a slip of the tongue. I said that the soldiers are using Palestinian children as target practice. Whoops! I misspoke. I meant they're just killing Palestinian children, but not as target practice. They're just killing them. Like, what kind of slip of the tongue is that? I'm not exactly the most eloquent person, and sometimes the words don't flow very fluidly from my mouth, but I've never accidentally talked about using children as target practice. Like, that's not the slip of the tongue that I don't think many of us have experienced. I guess it's something more common for Israelis or Jews. They have more of a proclivity to have a slip of the tongue where they're mentioning using children as target practice. That's interesting.
Stupid phrase. Israeli soldiers do not target, as a rule, children. There may be, and I'm sure there are and have been, war crimes committed by Israeli soldiers and pilots, perhaps, in this war in the course of 19 months. But I don't think we should forget that Hamas is a homicidal, a homophobic, misogynist, totalitarian organization which tried to kill as many Israelis as they could, most of them civilians, on the 7th of August. And what befell Gaza as a result is revenge for that attack by the Hamas. And the Hamas said they would do the same thing again if they are revived and resuscitated as a leading organization in the Gaza Strip. And I think that's the objective of the Israeli army, to end Hamas rule and to end the Hamas as an organization in the Gaza Strip. And anybody normal who doesn't support Islamists, doesn't support anti-Semitism, doesn't support misogyny, doesn't support homophobia, should be against Hamas, which Norman Finkelstein apparently isn't.
Yeah, but I don't hear people supporting Hamas.
You see that? He winked. He's winking at the audience. Like, this is absolutely disgusting. He's winking at the audience, smiling, grinning. This is a shaitan. Like, they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
Certainly in mainstream media or anywhere else. Everyone's of a unanimity that what they did was unconscionable and they should be held to account. The problem is that the strategy that the Israeli government
want to do.
Yes, I heard.
They still want to do and say they want to do.
Benny, let's just assume, because they said it themselves, in fact, the spokesman said it after October the 7th, that if they can do it again and again, they will. So they want to get rid of all the Jews in Israel. Okay, that is Hamas.
And of the state of Israel. And of the state of Israel.
But the problem is, as I've always said from the start...
So when it comes to the Palestinians, we can just assume we don't have to cite any statement. We don't have to cite any polls. We don't have to cite any kind of explicit documentation of Hamas or the Palestinians saying, yeah, we want to expel every single Jew from this land. We don't have to cite anything like that because in reality, that's not their position. Hamas's position is that they want to end the occupation. They want to end this Zionist force that is subjugating them and is stealing their land and is mass killing Palestinians. That's what they want. Clearly, there were Jews living in Palestine prior to Zionism, prior to the Zionist invasion, prior to the establishment of the settlements within the Palestinian territories, which eventually led to the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948. There were Jews there. Hamas is not saying we need to wipe out Jews in Palestine. No, the Jews who are living in Jerusalem, who are living in these Palestinian villages at that time, that's their land as well. And we don't have this kind of ethnic agenda to cleanse the land of one particular race or one particular religion. It's the Zionists, it's the Israeli Jews who want to do this at the highest levels. And this is what they have been attempting to do since the establishment of the State of Israel, since the Nakba in 1947. This is what they have tried to do explicitly on an ethnic basis. So if you cite those polls, if you cite that history, if you cite that documentation, if you cite literally the heads of state, the ministers who are saying that this is what they want to do, and they want to expel and forcibly, that's not enough. That's not enough to conclude that there's any kind of genocidal intent, according to Benny Morris and Piers Morgan as well, because he's accepting this kind of nonsense explanation. That's not enough to indict Israeli society, Israeli leadership, Zionists. That's not enough. But when it comes to Palestinians, we can just project, we can just claim whatever we want. Yeah, they want to kill all the Jews. Oh, okay, you're right. And then move on. Move on. Piers Morgan doesn't challenge that. Piers Morgan is not bringing that. Well, where's your evidence for that? He asked Norman Finkelstein for the poll. What is the poll exactly that was conducted? And unfortunately, Finkelstein didn't have the correct information on hand. But he doesn't ask Benny Morris to justify these claims that he's making, these false claims on behalf of Hamas or the Palestinians, Palestinian resistance.
Part of this, what is a proportional response to what happened? And what is the end game? What does Israel actually want at the end of this? And I'm beginning to think they don't have any plan at all. That actually what they're hoping is that they can pursue the line of many of the more right-wing members of that cabinet. Maybe Netanyahu himself now has been introduced into this because he has no incentive to end the war, because the moment it ends, he'll be held accountable for allowing October the 7th to happen in the first place, which was hugely unpopular for him in the polls with the Israeli people. But secondly, he's facing corruption charges in a criminal court the moment this is all over. There is no incentive for him to end it. And so this carries on and on with more and more Palestinians being killed. And all right, you might have a belief that the IDF never deliberately target children, but they are deliberately and relentlessly targeting civilian areas, in their estimation, going after Hamas. But in the process, they know they are going to kill on a daily basis dozens, if not hundreds, of innocent people as well. And that's been going on now week after week, month after month. And at some point, you surely have to concede that this strategy is not working. It's making Israel global pariahs. It's making Israel global pariahs. There is no evidence that Hamas is being dismantled. In fact, the opposite appears to be happening, where for every Hamas terrorist killed, they're apparently replacing them with multiple more people who share their ideology. The hostages are not being released. God knows how many of those hostages may be killed now with these intensifying airstrikes.
Israel now says it's launching. Can I correct you?
Israel now says, well, let me finish. Israel now
hostages?
says it's launching a massive new attack. Well, okay, bully for Israel, but actually none of this seems to be working. And so at some point,
can I correct
I
you?
say enough. Yes, correct me.
Okay, I understood that. Can I correct you on one small point? The Hamas kidnapped 251 hostages, most of them Israelis, some of them Nepalese, some of them Thai, on the 7th of October 2023. Of those, 177 were actually released as a result of the Israeli counteroffensive in interim arrangements.
Well, they were released by diplomacy, actually. They were released through diplomacy.
But Israeli military pressure is what persuaded the Hamas, because
Hamas had given so many opportunities for a ceasefire to release hostages, and Netanyahu rejected that. And Netanyahu emphasized over and over again that we are not going to stop. Even if all of the hostages are released, we are not going to stop until we completely decimate and eliminate Hamas. That's what Netanyahu has said over and over again. So this is the kind of brutality, carpet bombing, completely leveling all of Gaza was never for the purpose of releasing hostages, quote unquote hostages. You mean prisoners of war. All of them were IDF soldiers or reservists.
They also
why is it not working now? Why isn't it working now?
It will work. I don't know. Firstly, there's only 20 alive Israeli hostages left in Hamas' hands. I do believe that the government was incompetent in...
We don't know that.
We know
over 50 are not accounted for.
We know there's 20 live ones and assume 38 dead ones. That's what the Israeli
nobody knows for sure.
Okay, nobody knows for sure. The government now, which was incompetent and I think incompetently managed this war, that's why it stretched out for so long. Though don't forget, we also had a war with Iran and with...
It's incompetent, so it just wasn't brutal enough. Same as what the former member of the Knesset said. It's dragging on because we're incompetent. We need to be more brutal. We need to be more savage. We need to destroy more, faster.
Hezbollah, and we continue to have a war with the Houthis from Yemen. So it's not just been Israel focusing only on Gaza. But
but in the war, if I may say, before I go back to Norman, with the war with Hezbollah, that was a scenario where Israel, in terms of military operation, brilliantly targeted 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists in a way that begs the question, why could they not have done a similar operation on Hamas? And I've heard all the...
brilliant operation, pager operation, killing countless civilians. Oh, that was brilliant. The terrorist attack by booby-trapping a consumer product and detonating them in people's homes. Oh, the brilliant strategy. Yeah, that... Pierce, do you not remember, in addition to the pager terrorist attack, that the IDF was leveling entire apartment blocks, entire apartment buildings and entire blocks within Lebanon, within Beirut? Did you forget about that? If they were to continue, if the IDF were to continue, Beirut would look a lot like Gaza as well.
Excuses and explanations and arguments. But in one case, Israel has now, since October the 7th, 2023, just launched endless strikes and assaults on civilian populations in Gaza, killing, we don't know how many, but we know it's many tens of thousands, including over 20,000 children in a population with 50% under 18. And in their offensive against Hezbollah, which was incredibly successful, they targeted 3,000 terrorists with pagers, which have got explosives in. There's a massive difference in the way that Israel's gone about these two counter-terrorist operations, as they would put it. And I would argue the way they went after Hezbollah had global support in a way that the way they've gone after Hamas in Gaza is increasingly making Israel a global pariah. Norman, your response?
I agree.
Well, by Piers Morgan standards, for the past 20 months, there's been global support for Israel's policies. Piers Morgan has defended it and saying, well, Israel has to take these actions to defend itself against another October 7th. Piers Morgan has been on board for 20 months. It's only with the latest ground offensive that now the world is not on board. Look at the gaslighting that Piers Morgan engages in. This absolute scum dog.
I agree with you completely, but there were two reasons for that. The first one is that the Hamas has systematically hidden behind civilians and in tunnels underneath civilian centers.
Are we having a monologue?
Norman.
With all due respect to you, Piers, I think there's a misunderstanding about what's been happening since October 7th. Once October 7th happened, it was a crisis for Israel. About that, there's no dispute. But it was also viewed, as the cliche had it, it was also an opportunity. And the opportunity was to once and for all solve the Gaza question. Now, from day one, it was perfectly obvious that the goal of Israel was to solve the Gaza question through three methods. 1, ethnic cleansing. 2, make Gaza unlivable. And 3, mass killing, mass death and destruction. Now, if you look at it from that vantage point, the operation has been hugely successful. I don't know why, with all due regard, and I do respect you, I don't know why you keep saying it's been unsuccessful. They've destroyed about 90% of the housing in Gaza.
Look at that laugh. Look at that laugh from that disgusting...
Destroyed about half the hospitals in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the universities in Gaza. They've destroyed about half the arable land in Gaza. Gaza won't be habitable anytime in the next 2 decades, according to the best estimations by the international community, international organizations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, UNCTAD, and so forth. It's been hugely successful. Where we're at now is the final phase. And the final phase is why all the rats, like the leadership in the UK right now, and the French and the Canadians, they're trying to jump off the sinking ship because they know exactly what Israel has in mind. We're now at the apocalypse, the final phase. Mr. Morris has written a lot about 1948 in Israel. And in fact, what's happening now is very similar to what happened in October 1948. If you read his books, which I have, you see a massive escalation of atrocities during the 1948 war as they're trying to finish the job. And now Israel is trying to finish the job. If you read your own Financial Times, it described very beautifully what this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was about. They were going to set up 2 or 3 distribution points in the south of Gaza. And then everybody from the north and the middle of Gaza would have to go to the south in order to get food or water or medicine. And then when everybody was congregated in the south, what do you think is going to happen? Exactly what happened in October 1948. There were going to be the massacres. You know what they were going to say.
Can I say something?
There was rioting. There was rioting at the food distribution centers. The IDF felt afraid. And then it started to fire. And then they hoped
Piers,
in one fell swoop they could send the whole population over the border into Egypt.
He likes to lecture.
It's perfectly obvious what Israel is doing now. It's the last stage, or I should say, it's the final stage of the final solution. And now some of the Western leaders don't want to have to dirty their hands with it. So suddenly people like Galami are discovering that it's intolerable, the situation in Gaza. Guess what? It's been intolerable since October 8th.
Okay.
Dude, why is this guy scratching his head? Why is Benny Morris like he needs to take a shower? What a disgusting rat this guy is.
Final word, very briefly, to you, Benny.
As far as I've understood, firstly, at the moment, there's discussions of a prisoner exchange and a ceasefire between Israel and the Hamas, which may work out and give the Hamas a breathing space of 60 days at least in which to reorganize and whatever. But the Israeli military plan, as far as it's been published, is to take over essentially 75% and maybe by the end 100% of the Gaza Strip and root out the Hamas, kill the Hamas people, or get them to surrender and leave the territory, and to supply the Palestinian population in 3 centers, not just in the south, but also in the north, with humanitarian aid, if the Hamas will allow it to come through, because the Hamas have been taking most of the humanitarian aid
Benny.
and then selling it to merchants, and then selling it to merchants and making money with which they can hire new fighters. That's what the Hamas is doing with the humanitarian aid.
Okay, Benny, the truth is, when you launch a 3-month blockade of aid going in, when you know kids are starving, it's unconscionable. I don't care what you try and
starving. That's incorrect. There was a lot of food stores there for this period. Now they're reaching a stage at which there is famine, and Israel has begun.
All right, I've got to leave it there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Norman. We've run out of time.
The whole world is lying. The whole world is lying. The World Food Program
except Norman
is
Finkelstein. Except Norman Finkelstein. Everybody's lying.
UNICEF is lying. The whole world, which says there's a massive starvation verging on famine in Gaza, it's all made up.
Well, one thing, listen, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be, Norman, you don't have to be. You don't have to be an expert to know if you stop food going in sufficient quantities to a population that's already been at war since October 2023, and many of them are young kids. They're going to start starving to death, and they will. Anyway, I've got to leave it there. Thank you both for
the food doesn't arrive.
Yeah, well, the food hasn't been arriving because there's been a blockade. We've got to leave it there.
No, it started again now arriving.
Well, that's very generous of Israel, isn't it? After 3 months of starving people.
It's not a matter of generosity. There's also international pressure.
Yeah, sure.
3 months of starving 1 million children.
Got to leave it there.
3 months of starving 1 million children.
Got to leave it there. It's unconscionable, like I said.
Look at that rat. Look at that schlub. Take a shower, you disgusting slob. Just nauseating looking at. So that is how the discussion ended. Discussion or debate. And yeah, how can you stand such lies in the face of indescribable brutality, indescribable evil? It's just hard to believe. But again, this is coming from the Bible. It's coming from their religion. It's coming from their culture. Because you have to say that it's the culture as well, because it's you saw the poll numbers. You saw the percentages. 1/3 of secular Israeli Jews support killing all residents of a town that's been militarily invaded. 1/3. Over 50% or 70% support forced expulsion. These are secular Jews. So it's not just a matter of being religious and reading it from the Bible. It's just that these biblical norms are a part of their culture, part of a wider global culture. And this is also why when we go back to 1930, 1932, you also see forced starvation campaigns that caused famine, wiping out millions of Muslims, millions of Christians in Eastern Europe, in Central Asia. And now we see it in Palestine. This is a very clear pattern. And the people who were doing it in the 1930s, they were also the same ethnicity. They were also secular, by the way. They were communists. They were communists, and so they were secular, but they shared a culture and they shared this ethnicity. So we have to learn. We have to learn if we really are going to. Don't think that, people know. Now people know about what is going on and who's really pulling the strings. Now people are woke. So what? That just means that things are going to get more repressive. That just means that they're more and more desperate. And so the repression and the subjugation is going to accelerate. Explain to me how I'm wrong about that. Explain to me where my logic is failing me. I really want to know. So, okay, super chats. We don't want the stream to go on for too much longer. I want to look at your super chats. I don't want to read any super chats that are going to get the channel banned any faster than it might be banned already. So, just keep that in mind. Jihad A says, just for Sammy, Lebanese are not Arabs, Syrians are not Arabs, Jordanians aren't Arabs, Palestinians are not Arabs, only Arabs are from Arabia. Cry harder. Yes, actually. This is not immediately relevant to the stream, but if you look at the genetic studies show that there are different groups, different genetic groups. And the Levantine or Shami DNA is not, there's a different family, a different genetic family than the Arabs that came from the Arabian Peninsula. So what actually happened historically is that the people who were in these regions, in Sham, or in Egypt, for example, or Northern Africa, for example, or in Iraq, for example, they accepted Islam, they accepted the Arabic language, but genetically they're distinct. Genetically, they're distinct from the Arabs that are from the Arabian Peninsula, the Muslim Arabs that are from the Arabian Peninsula. And so there's like a Syrian, as much as they'll hate me saying this, or a Egyptian. You know, I have an Egyptian wife. I tell my Egyptian all the time that, you know, you're not more Arab than I am. You're not more Arab than I have plenty of Arab ancestry myself, actually. And you have some Arab ancestry as well, but you're not more Arab than I am. And she, at first she was confused, but now she understands and she laughs at that. But it's just a matter of genetic fact. It's just that in Iran, in Persia, they didn't adopt the Arabic language. They continue to speak Farsi. That's the only difference. Then when it comes to the Egyptians, for example, or the Northern, like the Moroccans, like there's a very big genetic difference between Moroccans and Algerians than Gulf Arabs, for example. That's a fact. So how can you say that they're all one genetic family? In fact, again, the Persians or the Afghans, parts of even the subcontinent, they are arguably close to Arab blood, to Arab genetics as the Northern Africans, as the Moroccans. So this is an inconvenient truth, but it doesn't matter for Muslims. Why? Because we're not racist. Islam is not based on this idea that Arabs are, if you're an Arab Muslim, you're superior to the non-Arab Muslims. If people are so angry about what I just said, they should check if they still have some kind of jahiliyyah within them, where they think that, oh no, I'm Arab, that means I'm superior. If that's threatened, if you say that I'm not an Arab, that's like you are attacking who I am. And I can't abide by that. I can't stand that. I'm going to lash out in anger. Like, maybe you have some jahiliyyah left. Maybe you have some jahiliyyah that you need to address and take care of. Islam doesn't say that the Arabs are superior to the non-Arabs. People are getting angry saying about Arabism, but when I pointed that out, it's because Lebanese were never supporting Palestinians. They support Israel as well as letting them enter Lebanon to massacre Palestinians. I don't know about that. I think that Lebanese have been supporting Palestinians. Immortal Technique, IRS is Israeli Revenue Service, CIA is Central Israeli Service. Thanks for your super chat. Hit that like button or I'll get my shahada. Thank you, son of Andalus. I don't know what you mean. Okay. Everything aside, we still don't know your Aqidah, bro. That's true. It's a mystery. Mysterious Daniel Yunus, appreciate your super chat. Son of Andalus says, Benny Morris said in an interview in the past that it was unfortunate that Ashkenazi Jews are becoming a minority in Israel and that the Arab Jews are having more babies. They don't like brown Jews. Yeah, the Mizrahi, the so-called brown or Arab Jews, Mizrahi Jews or Sephardic Jews. There are some internal ethnic conflicts in Israel because of the difference between the Ashkenazi versus the Mizrahi. But the Mizrahi just to have more babies. They are that demographic is increasing beyond 50%. BXZ, appreciate your generous super chat. May Allah preserve and protect you. Remember to give charity, fast, and do dhikr in these blessed days. Absolutely. Great reminder. Jihad A says, IDF was created by a Jewish terrorist organization that did attack, but was no longer an organization, was founded later. Still to this day, most of the members of the IDF were part of JTO. Yeah, I mean, this is well known. In fact, the Likud party is based on one of the original terrorist groups that Israel was founded on. This is not even something that historically can be denied. My mother is an ex-Christian and she was Catholic but stopped believing in it after finding Islam from her friend. She even tells me there are corrupted stuff in the Bible as well as weird things like eating your children. Not sure which biblical passage that refers to. I'm just visiting says, can you please recommend organizations for Udhiyah in Gaza? I'm not sure of any. If anyone has a suggestion, please feel free to leave it in the chat or the comments. But I don't know. They're blockaded. So how is Udhiyah going to get to them? Rahim says, Daniel, the 60-day limit for Iran comes on Sunday. Yeah, so Trump gave this ultimatum that there must be a deal made with Iran within 60 days. Otherwise, we're going to bomb Iran. That was Donald Trump's threat against Iran. And so Sunday is the end of that 60 days. Some are reporting that there might be a deal, like a tentative deal that's going to be made this weekend, just before the deadline. Others are claiming that no, they're not even close. The US and Iran are not even close to coming to a deal. And all of that aside, if there is a deal that's made, even temporarily, there are reports that Israel is just going to go ahead and bomb Iran anyway, regardless of what the U.S. wants. So they want to deliberately bomb Iran in a way such that the U.S. is not notified. The U.S. is going to be surprised so that they won't have time to block it or to prevent it or to convince them not to do that, to do it. This is Israel's actual plan. So the deal, as far as I'm concerned, is really, it's just a distraction. I don't think that Israel and Netanyahu have said that they're not going to accept any deal. The only thing that they will accept is an attack on Iran. So given the history of the United States and specifically Donald Trump in just doing whatever Israel says and whatever Israel commands, we can pretty confidently predict what's going to happen in the next month, maybe in the next week. I have a question on your video about Wahhabism. You said ISIS is a Wahhabi group, but is considered Salafi, just like AQ, who was founded by Osama, who attacked America and the support for Palestine and Islam. Can you explain about both groups? So there are big differences between ISIS and AQ. I think ISIS has takfired AQ. So there are differences between the two groups. AQ also does not believe in primarily attacking Muslims. So to what extent can we consider AQ to be following the type of Wahhabism that we saw from Ibn Abdul Wahhab? That's a question, but I think ISIS is more representative of the teachings of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, because just like Ibn Abdul Wahhab, ISIS says that our main opponents are other Muslims, because other Muslims are murtads. They're mushrik murtad. So we have to eliminate the murtad problem before we can go and liberate the Islamic lands from the West. So we first have to attack Muslims. That's why all of their attacks, all of their takfir is focused on Muslims. That's I believe different from other terrorist organizations like AQ. So you'll have differences between different groups, and the full elaboration would have to be given, or a full presentation, and we don't have time for that for the show right now. What do you think of the sudden shift in mainstream media? Why is everyone suddenly jumping ship like Piers Morgan? They just want plausible deniability so that after this final solution for Gaza takes place, that they can say that they opposed it. That's what a lot of these media pundits do. Like a lot of the media pundits, they will support war, they will support invasion for months and years, but they'll include some statements expressing opposition or expressing hesitation, because later, when that war has been deemed a disaster and that the historical consensus has been that, oh, well, that war was a disaster, they can say, oh, well, I was on the right side of history. The media establishment learned this after Iraq. So in 2003, the United States went into Iraq, goaded on by who else? The usual suspects. They invaded Iraq. They killed over 1 million Iraqis. The war was seen as a complete humanitarian disaster. It was seen as devastating for the United States economy. Thousands of U.S. soldiers were killed. So within the media establishment, they were heavily promoting the Iraq war. They were heavily promoting all of the Zionist lies and the Bush administration lies for justifying invading Iraq and overthrowing Saddam Hussein. So they were very much, the mainstream media was very much complicit in that invasion, in that disastrous war, in the war crimes that were committed and were later discovered and reported on. So they were complicit in that. And a lot of them lost credibility. Others escaped any kind of accountability. They enjoy their high positions within the establishment to this day. But it taught them a lesson. It taught them that, okay, it's good to just give yourself an insurance policy. It's good to give yourself some plausible deniability that you can point to later, after the fact, in 10 years, when the historical consensus is, even within the West, that this was a genocide of the Palestinians. You have some clip, or you have some article, or you have some, interview where you express doubts, or you give a statement like, yeah, I think this is too far, or, oh, this is wrong, or I really care about Palestinian children. Just have something like that on record so that you can point to, and then everything else will be forgotten. You just have that card that you can play if anyone accuses you of being complicit in the genocide. So that's what it is. It's completely self-serving. Okay. All right, guys. These questions are completely stupid. Explain. Okay, last super chat. Explain to a 5-year-old. Arabs have done nothing for Palestine, but what has Iran done for Gaza since October 7th? So, do you not know that Iran was... Like all of these proxies, what Israel and the Zionists call proxies, who is arming them? Who is arming the proxies? They're Arab proxies, by the way, in Lebanon and in Yemen and Iraq. They're Arab, but they're being funded and they're being armed by who? By Iran. So your statement that Arabs have done nothing for Palestine, this is false. These are Arab groups. And the idea that Iran has done nothing, this is also completely false. And even if Iran had done nothing, like literally nothing to support the Palestinian cause, and hadn't launched True Promise 1, True Promise 2, even if none of that had happened, the mere fact that Iran exists and refuses to normalize with Israel, refuses to come under the boot of US and Israeli control, that is enough. That is enough of resistance that it's meaningful, such that we support, or that we would say that we are in favor of this country continuing, this country of Iran continuing in the region as a counterweight, as a counterbalance, so that Israel doesn't enjoy this type of security, this unchallenged security in the region, so that it can just annex more and more land, perpetuate more and more famine and ethnic cleansing amongst its Arab neighbors, just merely by being a counterweight to Israel. That is enough to justify supporting the existence of that country and its position. While that doesn't mean you support everything that that country does, everything that that government does. It doesn't mean that you suddenly say that, well, their beliefs are not deviant. It doesn't mean that now you have whitewashed and you say, oh, they've never committed any crimes and they're the heroes and we have to love them and worship them. None of that is entailed. You're just recognizing a very obvious and clear geopolitical fact. I don't know how this is so hard for some people to get through their thick skulls. Okay, guys. So that was the last one, as I said. Thank you all for your attention and super chats. Now I'm looking at the regular chat just to see if I missed anything. Labib says, just basic geopolitics. Nobody told you to become a Shia, LOL. Super basic, not gonna lie. You will ally with the US, but you won't ally with Iran because it's dubious is dumb. Fake AI Mehdi reaction. I don't know who is the fake AI Mehdi. Yeah, a lot of you are just posting bait. We need to bring back global politics for Muslims. Yeah. Let's just start with like basic common sense. We can't really bring back global politics if people don't understand like ABCs. Thank you, Muhammad. Off topic, but your coat looks dope, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it. What's up, bro? Muslim Cyan. Hamas rejected the latest temporary ceasefire by Witkoff for 60 days. Thoughts? Their reasoning was that it's too favorable to Israel and it doesn't lead to a permanent ceasefire. So Israel has violated every ceasefire agreement so far that they've agreed to. So why would you, like, I'm going to fall for the same trick again? I'm going to fall for it again award? Like, why would you agree? Especially with Witkoff. Like, Witkoff has proven himself over and over again to be a liar and to go back on the agreements that are being made. Like with the agreement to bring aid for the release of that latest quote-unquote hostage. Witkoff had promised that, oh, we're going to allow more aid to come in. And it was aid that Israel controlled. as Finkelstein also mentioned. So that was a complete breaking of the promise that he had made for the release of that Eden Alexander hostage. What do you think about the idea of Muslims allying with China and Russia in the future to counter the West? Yeah, it makes sense. Muslims should seek allyship for the pursuit of their own interests. So every time there's allyship with the U.S. Forces an acceptance of Zionism at the expense of the Palestinians. China and Russia don't have that kind of requirement, number one. Also, China and Russia don't have a kind of forced liberalization agenda, unlike the U.S. When you ally with the U.S. and you normalize with the U.S. forces you to adopt feminism and LGBT and liberalization of your society, to eliminate any kind of Islamism in your society and deem it terrorism, imprison the Islamists. These are contrary to Muslim interests, is contrary to Islam. China and Russia don't have those kinds of requirements. So if it's going to be beneficial to form a kind of bloc, then this strategy should be pursued. And Muslim countries are already pursuing this strategy. Even Saudi. Saudi is using relations with Russia and China as leverage against the U.S. and Israel. All right, guys. We have crossed the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to end the stream here. Appreciate all your comments. Hope you enjoyed the live stream. Inshallah, that's the last live stream Haqiqat show for this week. I'll be back next week. We'll see if there's going to be war that'll break out, if Israel is going to attack Iran and their nuclear facilities. That might happen by the weekend. And the deal, or the deadline for reaching a deal with Iran, is going to expire on Sunday. So the U.S., who knows? Maybe the U.S. is going to start taking action as well. It's unlikely that a deal will be signed, but who knows? I could be proven wrong. I hope that you enjoyed the analysis. Again, I have to balance being pessimistic versus optimistic, and the sad truth is there's not much to be optimistic about. It doesn't make for the kind of content that unfortunately a lot of Muslims like. A lot of Muslims like content where you're just constantly positive, optimistic. It's all going to turn out great. It's all we're rising, we're ascending. There's, greener pastures. That's the kind of content that does well. But if someone is going to be a realist and tell you what it actually is, what is happening, it doesn't actually look very bright, the future doesn't look very bright, then people tune that out. Well, that's okay. I'm not trying to be popular. I'm trying to seek the truth. That's what Haqiqatjou means, and that's why this is Haqiqat show, seeking the truth. So be truth seekers yourself. If we don't seek the truth, then we're not going to be able to change the direction that the Ummah is going. We won't be able to change this history. It's just going to be more of the same. And I know none of you want that. So Jazakumullah khairan. Be sure to up your deeds, your good deeds in this month. Definitely try to fast Yom Arafah. Hopefully we'll have a show before Eid, at least 1 or 2 shows before Eid. So I'll see you again in these blessed days. So until that time, inshallah, I will say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.